the longtime Viking great Harrison Smith, kind enough to join us. Welcome to the show. Welcome to this was the first day of hitting, correct, in training camp?
Yes, first day of pads.
So, in general, we had Chuck Foreman on early, and I asked him the age-old question, especially for veteran players, what they can get out of practice at this point. Is it tedium? Is it boring when you know the ropes and you've done it time and again, or is it a place that you can use positively? What's it been like for you over the years when you come to training camp?
It's always positive. I think it's really it's no matter how much you train and work out and all those things, like it doesn't really get you ready for football. So playing football is the only way to get into shape for it. So you can always start there. There's always going to be different things schematically,
sure.
Personnel, guys you're working with that are new. So there's always new things to focus on.
So give us a little sense of the question, and you probably get tired of them, but when you've played as long as you have, the question always comes up, okay, well, how much longer does he want to play? How important is it to him at this point? So how do you weigh all that stuff? Is it how much the game still means to you? Is it the money might not be what it was, but it's still pretty damn good? What fuels your decision making each year now as you get a little longer in the tooth?
I think the first place I start is like, am I still good? Can I still give to the team? Can I still make plays? As long as that is there and you're wanted, you can be impactful. Those are kind of the place to start, and then the desire to last through a season. Like coming out here in training camp is, everyone talks about camp and it being tough. It's just camp. Like you just do it. It's a good time if you just lean into it. But the grind of the season is real. That's never going to go away. But I just like the competition. The competition, the feel of winning, like what everyone puts into it is, you can't buy that anywhere else.
What about your body? Where does that fit in?
Yeah, that's part of it. I think that's kind of in the am I still a good player box.
Right.
But it definitely got to tweak some things as you get older, just about training and keeping your body moving. You don't want to get stiff and like get that old man type walk. So I stay on top of that stuff.
So, the decision, it's always tough. You took a cut in salary. So historically, sometimes when teams ask great players like you've been to do that, they go two ways. Some of them say, all right, I can live with this and I'll stay. Others, though, tend to go, I know that's not fair. If I have to take a cut like that, I'm going to go someplace else because it just doesn't feel right to do it here. Was that a debate in your mind? Is that a difficult decision in your mind, or where does that factor in when they come to you and say, well, yeah, that was the money then, but now it's got to be something different?
Yeah, I've always had a pretty good mental approach of what it's like to make those decisions on the other side, not the player side, but the team side, the GM
How come?
side.
How have you been so good at that?
I just like to think about it. I'm like, what would I do? And I'd probably be wrong most of the time. That's why I'm still playing. But like there's just some realities to the game. Like when I sign a contract, I know the realities of it. You might see on ESPN or whatever what the maximum value is and the maximum years, but like unless you're a quarterback, maybe a receiver nowadays, like that's just not reality. It's pretty much 1 or 2 years for everybody. So I've known that with every deal that I sign, and I know if I'm not playing up to the caliber that I had been playing, that's not going to exist in the future. And there's just some realities to age and things like that. So like you talk about pay cuts and all that stuff, like it's kind of like if you're free and what's the market. So
good point. That's a big
stuff,
part of it.
Like I'm pretty good at not having like an ego and stuff with that. I still obviously have one because you have to be to be a good player, be a good competitor. But I also am pretty realistic about building a team and then also about myself as a player.
Harrison Smith, kind enough to join us after the first day of the Vikings in pads for practice. Kevin Seifert will join us later. It's interesting to hear you say that because it's a very, I would say, a mature approach because ego is part of this thing. As you say, you got to have a certain amount of ego. And it's just interesting how some players can't get past it. And you have obviously figured out a way to process it, maybe balance out, all right, what is actually going to be available someplace else? Mm. Do I want to start over someplace else? How much does that enter into it? You've been here. This is pretty unusual anymore. Mm. You've been here your whole career. I assume that means something to you as well.
Yeah, I definitely take pride in that because like you said, it's not very common in today's NFL. And then there's like some realities to, like, I've played for so many coaches that aren't here now that
Right.
are all around the league, and would I want to go play there? Would I want to go play for that guy? So those are things you think about. But ultimately, I mean, I'm a Viking. I've been a Viking, and I enjoyed here, and still chasing a high level of production here and winning.
How different is your role as a safety under Flores than, let's say, it was, in the best times you had under Mike Zimmer?
There's some similarities. There's as far as wanting to create pressure and the ways that we do it. There's some similarities. There's Larry Dean right there.
Ah.
Speaking of OGs, so there's definitely some similarities. Some coverages are different. Kind of some flexibility that we have now. I'd say it's probably more so, and like the personnel. Like we have a lot of safeties that are very smart players, very very good football players. So we're all we can kind of be interchangeable and move around and make decisions on our own. And Flores kind of builds that into the system and trusts us to do make logical decisions and calls and stuff. And that makes quite a bit of fun.
So some freedom.
Yeah, freedom, but like when you say freedom, it's not like freelancing.
Yeah,
like
you can't. You got to
just
still
going
within
on.
the structure.
It exists in our defense,
Right.
and it's like, okay, what do we want to? What makes sense here? And as long as we're making logical decisions, Flores likes us to have that freedom.
Personality-wise, in terms of Flores' approach with players, interaction, how is it? How does it contrasted with Zim, who I always felt like he had a really good relationship with. He obviously had a lot of respect for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't love comparing guys. Both guys that I enjoy playing for quite a bit and learn a lot from. But Flo's he's intense and very like ready to go. He's ready for action at all times, but he's not. He makes it in a way that it's not like too much for the players. Sometimes you can get a little too hyped, and guys like start doing stuff that doesn't even make sense. And Flores does a really good job of getting us
threading
ready.
that needle.
Yeah, getting us ready and ready to be physical and tough, but still be able to play like with a smart head on our shoulders. I think he said today. He said it's difficult. It's difficult to play at a high physical level with a high football IQ. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot to people, but when you're amped up to go hit another 200, 300-pound guy, sometimes you can lose your cool on the mental side, and you've got to find the right balance for you in that regard, and it's different for everybody, but that's kind of the sweet spot of defense.
So, everybody wants to evaluate instantly, of course, the quarterbacks, the couple new ones that you have, the kid and the bridge quarterback who may well be your starter. And I've read a couple of folks who've been out here every day among the reporters say, well, it's hard early to get a handle on them because from day one, minute one, B-Flow has been throwing all kinds of stuff, blitzes from everywhere. It's like there's been no. Is that an overstatement, do you think, of the way you guys are doing it, that you guys are torturing the offense already?
Well, like for us, I'd say it hasn't been too much because we're used to quite a bit. But I guess in general, it's probably a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and giving them a lot to think about. And we all have this perception of Flores' defense in general, that's a lot of what it is. The combinations of players, having a bunch of safeties on the field, having no defensive linemen on the field. I assume that kind of keeps it interesting, too, for you guys as a veteran.
Yeah, it does. Kind of like I said, just being interchangeable, being able to have guys mentally that can handle it. It makes it a lot of fun, honestly, because you can kind of make stuff up on the fly if you need to and be flexible. So it's fun for us, and if it causes more issues for the offenses, good.
You don't mind that very much.
No,
that's it. So in terms of this team and what you think its possibilities are, obviously you have a veteran quarterback who is now gone, that's created a lot of stability in the organization. So how do you view do you view this as a transition year? Do you view this as no different than any other year because you don't ever want to, think of it as a holding pattern, especially at this point of your career? What do you see as a veteran guy?
like you said, it's pretty early, so I'm not going to get ahead of ourselves. I like a lot of guys we have. I like some guys we brought in. You don't really know what it's like until you start playing for real and how the team gels and stuff like that. But we're just trying to get better every day, like everyone always says. But that's the reality. Progress is the process, and we're just trying to knock down the door, get into the dance. I heard you had a tough time knocking down the door to the
Word is spread, huh?
to the to the 10 here.
Yeah, it didn't go well. I unlike what you suggested is a better way to do it, did not keep my cool. I may have overreacted just a
sometimes
little
you gotta
bit.
let 'em know.
So yeah, and maybe it's the heat. I have no idea. Corner, real quick before we wrap up, Harrison Smith, kind enough to join us. So obviously, tragedy has struck this team at the cornerback position on a human level. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, it's also you've had injuries on another level, which is obviously not as important as the loss of life, which is on a whole nother level, as you guys well know. So as a veteran guy, what do you see? And you're picking up corners, it feels like almost every, and I think a safety, almost every other day in a league that's a passing league, as you well know. You got some pretty damn good, I think, quarterbacks now in this division as well. Mm-hmm. So what's your role as you're seeing? Because it feels like it's tough to put that all together on the fly very quickly.
Yeah, that's also the reality of the NFL. I will say, losing Kyrie, like you said, at a human level, that's tough, and we intend on playing well and playing with a lot of heart for him. But then, back to the football at hand, kind of, again, along the same lines, like everything we do is interchangeable, and guys can play different roles. So that we might lean on that if we have to, personnel-wise and things like that, but we'll get it right.
Last item for you. I know you're pretty uncomfortable trying to analyze yourself. You just kind of want to play. But to someone who hasn't watched you play over the course of your career, how would you describe, what do you as a football player, what do you think is the most important thing you try to bring to the game every day?
That's a good question.
Physical, mental, I mean.
Those are both great things, and like most people who evaluate me would probably say at this point in my career, mental. When I was younger, it was probably physical. That's how I got my nickname. But I think it's competitiveness. It's like those are what all the guys who last in whatever sport or career drive to be great, and you have to kind of change with the times. You have to change with who you are and where you're at in your career. But that search for winning on a daily basis is, in my opinion, the most important thing. And there's a mental toughness that's very real with that. No complacency, and that's just like how I've programmed myself to be as a human. And sometimes it gets me in trouble in personal life, but
how so?
I would rather be that way.
How so?
My wife thinks I'm mean sometimes, so sometimes I got to tone it down at home. Bit. Yeah.
So you got to still want to play, right? That's got to be. You can't lie to yourself about that, right? If you can't be the guy you've been if you pretend it still burns in you. Is that the best?
Yeah,
way to put it?
that's not like that's a no-brainer for me. Like,
right.
If I go play golf, I'm gonna be trying to go for your throat. So it's that's just how it is.
That part doesn't change. Last one, I promise you. So are you in a phase now where you literally don't look beyond the season you're in terms of how long you want to play? Do you say, no, actually, if I'm still good enough, I don't know why I have to stop for the next 2 or 3 years. How do you go about it each off season now?
The past few years, I kind of take it year by year, just kind of see where I'm at after the dust settles following the season. But like sitting here today, going into a season, like I don't know what's going to happen. There's it's so many things can happen. I look down, like my finger looks different than how it did before last season. So that's just like it's a really small thing, whatever.
Yeah, no, but it adds up, I bet.
But like those things are real and they exist. But like I said, I really enjoy the game and everything that goes into it.
I enjoyed the conversation, man. Thanks for coming to see us on the first day. Appreciate you. Harrison Smith, Vikings immortality already, and he's still playing. Let's pause here. We'll come back and prepare a little later for Kevin Seifert as well from TCO Performance Center, first day of the Vikings in pads.